Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Great to see you all here. Let me just go back to my thing here. Yep, I've seen some of the usual suspects already, which is great. Pierre and Nabheet and Fred and Mark and Srikanth. And welcome to Brenton as well. And also welcome Mahesh and Finazana. Who is Finazana? I'm not quite sure. And also welcome to Pritam. I think, are you joining us for the first time? Whether or not you're joining us for the first time, absolutely welcome. So Fred, you managed to catch up with all the previous episodes. Wow, okay, so you're ready for new stuff. Okay, that's great. So I'm broadcasting from a different location and also with a different setup. So I apologize in advance if things go a bit wrong. I'm broadcasting from my laptop directly, and I had a bit of a weird situation setting things up, screen resolution size, and I'm also, of course, when I switch screens, you may see sort of behind the scenes when you see my OBS. Oh, thanks, Fred. Looking good so far. I'm in some meeting room, Luce, I guess that's Italian for light, number 4 in SAP offices in Maidenhead, the venue for SAP Inside Track Maidenhead, which is happening today, starting at 9, which is an hour from now. So yeah, very exciting. I've got my coffee. It's not my packed coffee, and it's certainly not in the Coffee Corner podcast mug. It's a coffee from the canteen. So let's get going. A couple of things before we start. Let me just actually, don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain. Exactly. Oh, that's a huge screen behind me. Anyway, the odd thing is I've only got this one laptop screen, so normally I've got the other screen where I can see what's being broadcast and I can see myself and everything. Now I've switched to another window, I can't see anything, so I'm flying a little bit blind here. But anyway, I'm going to switch to another scene on OBS, where you get this wonderful effect here now. You'll see the OBS thing here. Oh, by the way, does that mean that the stream chat is slightly in the wrong place? I think it is, isn't it? There we go. Let's move that across here. Oh, I've made it bigger on. Too big. There we go. I adjusted it. There we go. That should be okay. Let me know in the chat whether that's okay. I'm going to move now. I'm going to lock that back into place. And there we go. There's my live dashboard. I can see that the stream health is excellent and so on. There's a video preview. I can hear the chat, see the chat here. Okay, so yeah, please let me know in the chat whether your chat is visible. Thanks, Brenton. Okay. A couple of things, just a bit of an update. We've got now a playlist on YouTube, which is, some of you may know this already. I think obviously Fred has just been catching up maybe with these. The playlist is called Hands-on SAP Dev with QMacro, and it's in the SAP Developers YouTube channel. And what I've done is sort of transferred the recordings that are automatically made available on Twitch, but I think they live on Twitch only for a certain amount of time, for a finite number of days. I think it's maybe 60 or something, because I'm a Twitch Prime something or other. But a better and a permanent home for the recordings of the live streams is here on YouTube. And so we can see that we have all the way from episode 0 up to episode 6, so 7 episodes so far. And the reason we haven't got episodes 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 on here yet is because what I'm trying to do is put one onto the playlist when it's annotated. So what are the annotations, just to let you know? If you have a look at the main blog post, which you can get from the bit.ly link, hands-on SAP Dev. Okay, so go there. In fact, I'll go to there. And that will take you to here. And if you go flip down to the capture replays section, you'll see the link to the YouTube channel. And you'll see also this table where we've got a summary of each of the episodes, where the date we broadcast and everything, the title and the description. And there's a link now to, by the way, I don't know what happened. I was starting up Keycaster, which I've stopped now, I don't know why, or Keycaster or Streamlabels or something, and this sort of second mouse appeared. I can't get rid of it. I don't want to didn't want to restart my laptop 5 minutes before the live stream, so please ignore this other mouse thing. It's quite annoying. I've tried closing the laptop, making it sleep, bring it back up again. It's still there. Some Mac OS weirdness. Anyway, so there's a link to the replay, link to that video on YouTube for that episode recording. Also here on the right-hand side, you can see there's links, annotated links, episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, blah, blah, blah. So if we look at the latest one, you will see the link to the YouTube video, which is the one on here, for example. But you'll also see a link to a blog post, one blog post per recording. And that is got the quick synopsis, and then we've got links. So you can go back and search text-wise, because obviously a recording is quite hard to sort of scrub through and look for what you're looking for. So hopefully the annotations in here will help you remember what we did, or look for what you're looking for, find what you're looking for. And then if you find something, oh yeah, okay, let's go to, security, some strange person in the field. If we go, for example, to starting to define our model, you can just click on 002645 and it will take you straight to that part of the video. So hopefully that's useful. Let me know in the comments. I had a comment from Chris Solomon in the chat on Twitch this morning about it being difficult to find which videos were talking about what. And I think that's related to how I maintain them in my video annotations here in Twitch. But basically, if you use the hands-on SAP Dev bit.ly link to go to the main blog post, then you'll find hopefully what you're looking for. Good morning, Ronnie. Good morning, Maxi, as well from Berlin. You're in Berlin. Okay, very cool, very cool. Okay. So that's that. A couple of other things that I spotted yesterday, or this week, that I think will be interesting to our family here. I've decided on the word family is good, live stream family. On OpenSAP, there's a new course from some, of course, friends of mine, Michel Graaf and Margot, and lots of other people as well. All these people here, a brand new updated UI5 course. So it starts, when does it start? In 54 days, so it's not available yet. It will be, and you can see the highlights here, best practices, OData version 4, which is of course very relevant for what we're talking about right now on this series, which is the application programming model, cloud application programming model, which with Node.js produces OData version 4. With the Java flavor, you can produce OData version 2, but why look backwards when you can look forwards? All sorts of really cool stuff, which is great. Plus, let me just get rid of that one. Plus, I just saw a tweet this morning from a friend and colleague of mine, Cecilia Huergo, about this SAP Cloud Platforms Essentials update, second quarter 2019, which talks about SAP application programming model. There's Ruby and Sabrina, and it's with other people as well, including somebody you will know from a previous live stream. There's Christian, which is great. So I'm going to be following this course. It's again available, I think, in 45 days, sometime in April, I think. When does it start? Yeah, end of April. So by the time we get to the end of April, I think it might be very interesting to start having a look at this course and what the content is, and maybe discuss that here and hack on stuff together. Plus, maybe we start moving into some UI5 territory as well. One of the things that I noticed, there's a new version of the Bookshop tutorial for CAP. Which also includes some front-end stuff, so annotations and some Fury apps that are sort of generated and so on. So we'll be having a look at those shortly as well. So some coffee, and also I need to flip back and forth between what I'm doing and the chat, just to make sure I'm not missing anything. Fabian, there is a Java flavor of the application programming model. That's something I probably won't be covering here because I'm not a big Java fan, to be honest. I think people who know me know that. So I'm going to be covering Node.js. However, you know, I might be able to find somebody to give us an overview of the Java flavor, let's call it, if that is something we want to have a look at. I'm sure I can find somebody. So anyway, the subject of, so that's all the stuff out of the way. The subject of today's live stream, in fact, if I go to hands-on SAP Dev, we can go to the upcoming episode. Yeah, the subject is having a look at some of the JavaScript inside of SAP CDS. Now, I think it's interesting for a couple of reasons. The first reason is that it allowed me to scratch an itch, which was to filter out some columns in CSV files, which I'll come to shortly. But it also is quite a rich source of modern JavaScript style. Let's put it that way. Since reading through some of the JavaScript in the whole SAP CDS module or package, I've learned a lot. And I think for us as programmers, one thing that certainly is true for me is that I read a lot more code than I write, and I think that's true for everybody. I've always had this idea that, you know, reading other people's code is always, you know, always a good thing if you can do it. So we'll have a quick look, or we'll have a look, not quick look, we'll have a look at some of that and where I came to that, and then I want to talk you through what I've got so far in terms of filtering out columns. So, by the way, why do we want to filter out columns? So, in our grab script, so let's go to, in fact, yeah, let's open up code. In our grab script, that cursor is really annoying me. We have a ton of stuff that allows us to go, just to remind ourselves, allows us to go and have a look at the Northwind service and go and grab all the data by paging through, using skip token here, by paging through each of the pages of data. Now, in fact, it turns out that, you know, we're just grabbing products, suppliers, and categories. And it's only with the products that we need to actually page through the different skip tokens. That's why we've got tokens 4 here. And what we get, of course, is a ton of fields. Now, in certain circumstances, you know, a ton of fields in our CSV output. In fact, have we got any output here? I can't remember. Data. Yes, so for example, here in categories CSV, or let's have a look at products.csv, that's a bit more data. We get all these fields here as output. Now, in some of the demo apps that I'm building and just test apps, sometimes I want to build a data service using CDS that doesn't have, this feet's very low, that doesn't have all of the fields. And it was a bit of a pain to go and edit this and remove, you know, load it into, for example, Google spreadsheets and remove some of the columns, then output it again. So I thought it'd be quite interesting to write a script that does that for me. And I got the idea, well, I'll show you where I got the idea from. Let me just kill this and let's go into, I've got a copy of something I'm going to be presenting later on today, Easy Data Services with CAP-M at SAP Inside Track Maidenhead, which is where I am. And yeah, let's start up code again for this one. And I've mapped the caps lock key to control, but I'm not going to, Srikanth, let me know if you want Keycaster on. I'm leaving it off for now because it's quite big on this resolution display, on this laptop display. So I'll leave it off for now, but if you want it, give me a shout and I'll turn it on. I need to keep checking here. Oh, Fabian, okay, me neither. Okay, yeah. I mean, the Java virtual machine is a wonderful thing, just not necessarily the Java language, in my humble opinion. There are other languages that compile to JVM bytecode, for example, Clojure, which are wonderful. Anyway, so let me have a quick look here at where we are. If I bring up the terminal and do a CDS deploy, let me make that a little bit bigger. And is that big enough, by the way? Just let me know if it's not. CDS deploy. One of the things that put me onto maybe having a look at whether I could utilize some of this stuff from SAP CDS was this message here, initializing from CSV files at dbcsv. So, by the way, I'm just going to, I don't know whether these chairs are stackable. I don't think they are. I need something to sit on. There's two chairs over there. One second. I feel really low. I'm going to get those two chairs, stack them, and sit on them. 1 second. Oh, that's better. Stacked chairs for the win. Right, back on again. Ooh, much better, much better. Okay, so this gave me a clue as to the fact that the SAP CDS infrastructure, the code infrastructure, is doing stuff with CSV. So I was curious as to what that was. Now, I thought, well, let's just have a look. Minus R, let's put that in quotes, of course. Let's have a look to see. There we go. And I could find the fact that this message came from a file called init from CSV inside of SAP CDS. So what I thought I would do was have a look how the CDS deploy command ended up bringing us into this file here, just to learn a little bit about how SAP CDS fits together, and then having a look at some of the features that init from CDS uses. And then we'll look at the bit of code I've written so far, and I'll be open to suggestions as well as to what else we can do to improve it. I've got my own ideas, but let's just look at it first. Okay, so if we remember, I think we covered this briefly in one of the previous episodes, but if we have, in fact, let's go to the terminal. There we go. If we have a look, we have a number of different options with the CDS command. We've got compile, deploy, serve, and so on. Now it turns out, I think we did look at this. It turns out that if we dig into the node modules, which of course is where the different packages are installed locally for this project, we have the @SAP folder, and then within there we've got all the different modules that we looked at. In fact, if we do, for example, npm info SAP CDS, we can see the info which we've seen before, and it shows us the dependencies here: CDS compiler, CDS QL, reflect, and so on. And we see that effectively represented in the list of modules underneath the SAP namespace. Now, in SAP CDS itself, we've got a number of different things. One thing we've already looked at is this common CDS, which is almost like this sort of general, I was going to say global, but maybe that's not the right word, a general sort of library for, that's a bit big, isn't it? A general library for reusable aspects that we can use in our CDS definitions. So we've seen that before, but one of the things that's interesting is that if we look in the bin directory, binary directory, although I think it's quite interesting. Actually, before I say what's interesting, what I'm going to try and do, because I'm conscious that I'm not interacting with you as well as I might be because I can't see the chat. So what I'll do is I'll make that a little bit smaller. I can sort of do that, can't I? Make that a little bit smaller as well. And then pop out the chat. There we go. Maybe that will help. Ooh, is that the stream chat? Oh, maybe when it's popped out, the existing stuff disappears. So let me just, yeah, let me make that smaller. Hello, can you see this, for example? Get rid of that. Ooh. Ah, hold on. Is OBS still running? Yes, it is. Ooh, is that, when did that happen? Are you still there? Yes, you're still there. Okay, fine. That must have been from a previous, when you change the resolution of your screen and OBS is running, sometimes it crashes, which is not great. There we go. Let's just put that there as well. There we go. We can have that. Can somebody just type something in the chat so I can just see that you're still there, and this chat's going to get updated. Okay, so we've got here the common, and yeah, we got the oh, thanks Maxi, and thanks ASD 24 hours. ASD 24 hours. That's a very interesting. Thanks Miles. Interesting name, ASD. That's the first 3 letters on the UK keyboard anyway. So the binary directory is traditionally for binaries, executables, which are in binary form. However, you know, I think that means something different these days, doesn't it? Because of course these are not binary; they're executable, but they're of course written in JavaScript. So anyway, that's just an interesting thing. Thanks, Rob. Oh, morning, Robertino, and morning, Miles as well. Morning, ASD. Where was I? Oh yes. So in the bin directory, we have the CDS binary, which is the thing that responds to when we type in CDS, for example. And as you can see here, there's almost like a one-to-one relationship between what you can do here, C, D, S, B, I, etc., and what's sort of defined within the first part of this executable as the possible shortcuts. Okay. So we can get a clue that this is the thing that is executing when we run CDS. However, it sort of has modularized the whole thing. And you can sort of see here there are different binaries, different executables that relate to all the different features. So there's one here called deploy. So let's have a look at the deploy. And if we scroll through, I can probably make this a little bit one smaller, can't I? I can scroll through, and on line 26 here, there's a series of a promise chain where we load the model and then we do the deploy with the CDS API, and we explored the CDS API in one of the previous episodes when we looked at the REPL, and then it does this CSV thing, and that's where we've got this etc init from CSV, and it passes it the model. So why don't we do that and grab, in fact, the init from CSV from the etc directory. There it is there. And here we go, init from CSV. Let's put a breakpoint here to see what happens. So the question then is, what's going to happen when we run this? So let's just remind ourselves again of what we want it to do. One of the many things I dislike about this MacBook Pro keyboard is the fact that the control key's in the wrong place as well. But anyway, let's just do this here. CDS deploy. Initializing from CSV file. So we want to sort of find out how that's going to happen. Okay, so we've got this thing here because this is where the message comes from. So if we run this, let's bring up the command again, and CDS deploy. Of course, nothing's going to happen because we're not in debug mode. So I'm going to debug that instead. So I'm going to hit debug, which is F5. In fact, I'll use the menu so you can see what I'm doing. Start debugging, F5. But that also doesn't really do what we want to do, because that's running the CDS run command. So where is that defined? So I was did a little digging about, because I'm still fairly new to VS Code. And if we look at in the Explorer, in the launch configurations, in fact, debug, open configurations, we can go straight there. Let's get rid of the integrated terminal for now.
This is what we see inside of launch.json. Okay, and launch.json, I'll just remove that thing for a second, contains a number of what I'm going to call stanzas. Let's make that a little bit smaller. There we go. Contains a number of stanzas which are launch configurations. One called CDS run, where we run CDS with the run command. Okay, so that's the equivalent of doing CDS run, which of course is exactly CDS, what it's doing here, right? So what we can do is duplicate this launch configuration here. In fact, I should. Let me do that again. If I find no, let's just do that. Let's duplicate that and call this one CDS deploy, and we'll pass it a deploy argument instead. Okay, so let's save that. Let's go back here. Yeah, that's fine. So now if we launch debug F5, but what we want is the CDS deploy configuration. So I guess that name comes from here. Let's kill that. F5, Control C. So if we now run the CDS deploy, amazing. We're exactly where we want to be. So what's happened is that we've gone through the call stack here. DB load then is this init from CSV, blah blah blah. Main deploy then promise init from CSV. So let's have a look what we've got here as far as the thing that's been passed. It's actually turns out it's actually quite interesting. Now is that there we go. Yes, let's do that. I'm really struggling with this small screen and this terrible keyboard. But anyway, debugger attached. So let's go to the debug console and have a look. Oops, what's in model? Model is just an array, and we just have the DB and the serve strings in there. Okay, so all it's doing, we can sort of tell now. Now we know what's inside of model. We can tell what it's doing, which is going through the model plus CSV. So again, this is convention over configuration. So it will look for CSV files in a folder called CSV, in a directory called CSV inside of the model directory. And then it goes and loads this stuff up and checks whether it's a directory or not, blah, 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 blah. And it connects then to the CDS session and basically squirts the data in. Okay, so we're not going to debug that right now. We're just going to come out of that. That's all fine. And we should have finished there. Perfect. Okay, so let's have a look at init from CSV. How it works. Let's just have a look at this here. Get rid of that. A bit smaller. There we go. We've got here a really interesting construct. I'll make this one smaller. I'm sure you'll please shout if it's not okay. I'll make this one smaller. A really interesting construct here, which is, of course, from ES6, where we're requiring something. Okay, this private module here, and we're doing some destructuring. So what happens is, if we have a look at libutils fs, let's go into there. Let's go into the Explorer and go and have a look at not bin but libutils fs. So fs file system is a built-in module inside of Node.js. And so when you do require fs, you get it. You don't have to do an npm install of anything. But look at what, I think this is really nice. Look at what this module is doing. There's a module that exports, which is the standard way to sort of define a module and export the stuff that you want to sort of make available to the consuming programs. So it's exporting path, make DFP, rimraf, I have no idea what that is, rimraf sync, and so on. It's exporting this stuff. But what it's also exporting is the entirety of FS. So it's basically exporting an enhanced version of the FS module, which I think is really, really nice. So with that in mind, let's go back to init. In fact, let's just make a double click on that. It stays there. Let's go back to where were we? Utils, no, etc. Where is it? Bin, etc. Init from JS. There we go. Init from CSV. So we're pulling in various functions from this enhanced FS module in line 1. And what we've got here is effectively only one main function, which is called init from CSV, and there's a helper function init, and there's this sort of even smaller helper function here, which is, again, this is just a little bit of a thing. I think it's a thing of beauty here. It's just so nicely and concisely written. But anyway, what we're doing here is we're initializing the database with data from CSV files, okay, which we've seen already. And the first thing that we do is we call this init script, which has a pointer to the folder or the directory and the database connection. And it goes and reads everything and parses this thing. Okay, so parses a CSV file. So it goes through each of the files, parses the CSV, and then whacks them in with the, again, with the CDS API insert into. So that's really nice. One thing that really was like making me wonder, I've looked through this week, and one thing that was really making me wonder was, is this some sort of, in fact, why don't we do this? Let's put a breakpoint on here and do that again. Let's go into debug, which is, how do you get to the, go to, there's a way to go, selection, where is it? Ah, here we go, Explorer, debug is, okay, so shift copy, shift command D is debug, like shift command E is Explorer. So I can go to debug mode, run that, and there we go. Okay, so we're here now, and insert into each. So each is basically the file name, and I was thinking, okay, each dot replace dashes with periods. Okay, so we're searching for dashes anywhere, G globally, and let's just type in each here so we can see what each is. That is a bit small. Let's just make it a bit bigger. I wonder if we can get, yeah, we don't need that thing on the left-hand side. There we go. Make that one bigger. I'll be glad when I can get back to my main screens. So we're replacing the dashes with dots, and again, this is relating also to CAP's convention over configuration, where and I think we've said this as well, you need to make sure you name the CSV files appropriately, but at the end of the day, it's going to actually resolve the table name by, with the dots. So we've got sitmy, as in SAP Maidenhead, sitmy dash categories.csv. It actually replaces those with dots. So I'm guessing theoretically you could actually call it sitmy.categories.csv. Anyway, I'm thinking, wow, what's this slice doing? How is it? And when you did the slice, so if we said, for example, here, let's just grab that. I can't. Oh, yeah, let's just do this then instead. Let's go into node, x equals that, x dot slice, or x dot replace. Is sitmy categories. And I was thinking, how the hell does slice know that these are all divided up into individual sections by the dots? But actually what it's doing, if you do a slice on ABCDE dot slice 0 minus 2, you're just taking off the last two characters. So there we go. Who knew? So that was a bit of a learning for me. So slice works on strings as well and just takes each individual character in the string as an array element effectively. Anyway, where were we? So we do the csv.parse, we're inserting into the database, and then we're done. Okay. So I'm thinking, okay, csv.parse. Where's csv.parse coming from? So let's finish this debug session and go back here and have again another look at csv.parse. So csv.parse is here. CSV equals require lib utils CSV. So let's go and have a look at libutils.csv. Bin libutils.csv, which is here. And we got this wonderful parsing function, which is like halfway to what I really want to do. I need to be able to parse CSV and then be able to spit it out. And there's actually a serialize function here as well. It didn't do quite what I wanted, so I've written my own. But all the hard work of parsing a CSV, I might as well use that. So that's what I did. Exactly, this is down the rabbit hole. Hopefully that's okay. I do like descending down rabbit holes when they're large enough for me to fit in. But again, as I'm going here, I'm also, and hopefully we are together, learning some nice quirky features of ES6, because this is very clearly very specific style, which I quite like, and I'm learning from here. So anyway, I took this and I thought, can I use these libraries and the utilities within these libraries here to do what I want to do, okay? And it turns out that you can. And also what I'm hoping to do is somebody looking at me through the window. I think it's Volker Stoeffler. Hello, go away. You put me off. Volker, I love you really. He's gone now. Where was I? Oh, yes. Yeah, one of the things as well is we sort of get to know the lay of the land underneath what we do. So, without further ado, what I wanted to do was figure out whether I could use this csv.js file in my own program. It turns out I can. So let me kill this, and let me switch over to CSV, there we go, there. CSV filter. So this is me wanting to be able to filter out columns in CSVs. Now I've just thrown up what I've done so far. CSV filter onto GitHub, so you can take a look and have a laugh. So it's all here if you want to have a look at it later. But basically, let's have a look what this does. And how this works. Why don't I run it first so we can see what it does? Let the dog see the rabbit. Let's go here and did I just kill that? No, it's there. Let's go here and say I've got a file here in temp called suppliers.csv. So cat temp suppliers.csv, and it's just a few suppliers with lots of columns. And what I want to do is only have a CSV file with the supplier ID column and, I don't know, the company name column, for example. So I can say, in fact, we'll look at this maybe another time, but I've actually used npm link to create a binary, as in an executable, from this. So in here we've got cli.js. So I could say node cli.js, but actually, because I've got this thing here, it links via a symbolic link the CSVF, a new CSVF command, to that particular cli.js. But for now, what we'll just do is just run the cli.js so we can see what we're doing. Node cli.js, okay, yeah, cli.js. And in fact, if I run that, it will give us a little output, which is really nice. So we take an input file, and we have an output file that we want to specify, and it defaults to a underscore out.csv. We can specify a list of fields that we want, and it will convert something for us. So if we say, for example, CSVF, or like I say, node cli.js, input file is temp suppliers, and the fields are supplier ID and company name. I think it's called company name. Yep. Let's leave the output to be the default underscore out.csv, and let's also do verbose as well. Fine. There we go. So that's worked. So processing temp suppliers.csv, filtering to supplier ID and company name. In fact, if I'd have said, for example, a wrong field, it would have said unrecognized fields, company name XXX. Okay, so let's do that again correctly. Written to out.csv. So if we look at out.csv, we can see we've got exactly what we want, right? So how how did I do that, and how did I leverage, to use that noun as a verb, the CSV stuff inside of SAP CDS. So let's have a look. In fact, I'm back in terminal. Let's go back to code again. See, I sort of oscillate between code and terminal. Ah, it's because I sort of, did I minimize it? Where's my terminal gone? Oh, okay, code there. I have no idea what I'm doing. So there's output.csv. Here's CLI.js. So let's have a look at that. What I did, in fact, is install SAP CDS. So I did an npm install of SAP CDS. So we can see in the node modules directory, I've got SAP CDS. And of course, it's also generated. It's also installed the generator.cds by default. So we get all that stuff that we've just been looking at, the bin, all this stuff here, and the lib. So I'm just using it just as any other node module. Okay, I'm not using it necessarily, and I don't need to use it from the command line, CDS deploy, CDS run, CDS init, and so on. But I want to use it as a source of library goodness. So I installed that. I also installed this command line args. Oh, that's a nice pop-up. What was that there? Command line arg loading. Look at that. It goes, VS Code goes to, does it go to the npm registry or something? It did do something, didn't it, just then? There we go. A mature feature code. That's amazing. VS Code, who knew? I've also installed command line args that allows me to really easily process command line args like the dot fields and the -i and the -o, sorry, dash fields. And I was using NodeMon, as I was developing it, I was using NodeMon, just like we did in episode 0, in fact, just to sort of keep rerunning it while I was testing it. So that's all that's in package.json. Let's go and open up the CLI again and have a look at it. So once I've got the SAP CDS installed, all I needed to do was that. Require SAP CDS lib utils CSV. I mean, this might be obvious to you folks, some folks. I don't know. It wasn't obvious to me. You know, can I do this? Yes, I can. And I also used, having learnt about this, you know, I'm sort of trying to adapt the style that I've seen already in the SAP CDS code base. So I'm using destructuring here. I'm using the standard FS package, the Node.js FS package, which has a read file and a write file function. And it has all sorts of other functions as well. But what I'm doing here is I'm loading or causing the FS module to be loaded. And then this construction here is shorthand for, I want to create a map with 2 elements. The first element having a key that's read file, and the actual value of that element is read file coming in from the FS. So it's shorthand for doing read file colon read file, write file colon write file type thing, which is really nice. So that's, you know, again, ES6 for me, as well as allowing us to just write slightly more functionally because of the fat arrow syntax and other things, things like destructuring allow you to write more concise code that probably flows in one's brain a little bit better. So, so that's that. And I've also adopted this sort of approach to small things loosely joined. You know, one thing, do one thing and do it well and do it really simply. We'll see where this error function definition comes up later. If you're interested, what we'll do next time, probably we could do a midweek special next week on Wednesday to go through this in a little bit more detail, because I think it might be quite a nice idea to extend this to read from standard in and standard out, because I'd like to be able to pipe in some CSV and pipe out, is that a word? Output. Bring in from standard in, do the CSV filtering, and bring out. Oh, hiya. No, I'm still on, but it's all right. It's just down here. We're almost starting SAP Inside Track. I'll be 15 minutes or less than 15 minutes. Do you need to come in now? Okay, cool. Yeah. So SAP Inside Track starting shortly. So yeah, bring in, bring out. Okay, so we've got this option definitions here. Exactly, pattern matching. down here, which is sort of the configuration to use this command line args thing here. And what I'm doing as well is requiring the package, but also calling it straight away. Hey, morning, Jan. There's Jan van Antem. Good morning. Good morning. I would turn the video camera around, but it's it's attached to the screen. Come around and say hello. Come around and say hello. Here's Jan.
Good morning.
Okay, that's cool. And
Impressive. I don't know anything about it, but it looks impressive.
I don't know anything about it either. I have no idea what I'm doing. But anyway, so we've got the we're actually invoking this command line args default function, giving it the option definitions, and out of it we get hunter gatherer. Who's hunter gatherer? Who's hunter? I can't remember who hunter gatherer is. He says hi, Jan, by the way. We get this sort of map of options. Okay, so we'll have a look at that shortly. One of the things I would love to explore with you is the use of, or the approach to writing functions that are pure. So what I've done here, let's make this one smaller so we can see the whole line. Normally I would, or in the olden days, I would write a function for logging where I have a global variable saying, is logging on or off? Is verbose on or off? And then I would call that function, do write log, and then that write log function inside the function block, inside the function scope, it would look at the global variable, do we need to log or not, and then write something out to the console if we did, and don't do anything if we didn't. However, one of the problems there is that function is not pure. It's actually, its behavior is dependent on something that's outside itself. Okay, so that's what we want to avoid. So one of the patterns that I've come across is to write a function that has everything that it needs to operate. Okay, and here's an example. And if you saw the previous episode, episode 11, last Friday with Chris Whaley, you'll have seen something like this, where we've got this function here that takes, just ignore the outside bracket for a second, takes an argument, is verbose, okay, and then that produces a function that's waiting for something, x, and then the body of that, it's a single expression, effectively. So, again, pure functions and single expression functions are not the same, but they are related. Then it can check the is verbose Boolean, in this case, and write the console output or not. But if you remember from the first, if I say VF on, yeah, there we go. From the first episode, we talked about, the first episode we talked about immediately invoked function expressions. So what we're actually doing is calling this function first of all and passing to it whatever is in options.verbose, which is going to be a Boolean, right? So if I pass, if I say minus v or minus verbose, our beautiful command line args module will give us options.verbose as true or false. So what we're doing there is we're creating in the log constant a closed over value of is verbose in a function that no longer is expecting two arguments, is verbose and x, but a function that's closed over is verbose and is just ready for the final argument x, which is then the thing to be logged out or not. So that's a pattern that I'm trying to adopt more and more, and I think it works. I think it works really well as a pattern in my brain. Anyway, we've got this console log thing here. We've got a number of functions that, again, we've only got 10 minutes left. So I think it's probably worth exploring maybe one of these shortly, and we'll explore some of the other ones later on. And of course, you can have a look at the code in the GitHub repo. In fact, I want to paste the GitHub repo in the chat. There we go. And then down here, we've got a serialize function. So I'll cover what this indices function does, the pick function does, and the missing function does shortly. I just want to show you the whole thing first of all, 10,000 feet. We've got a serialize function because the init from CSV or the CSV module from SAP CDS, sorry, did I say SAP CDS? Didn't really do what I wanted to do, but the parsing function did. It was beautiful. So I've got a very simple serialize function. Again, using, I think, something that is an ES6 feature, which is the ability to define default values for parameters. So we've got the default value for the field separator being a comma, and the default value for the line separator being a new line, of course, because you're not, because we're using real operating systems, not the pretend operating systems. Hint, hint. And we're just pushing stuff into an array of lines here. We push the columns first, and then we push each of the rows. Okay, but we call serialize later. This is currently the main body of the function. Read file. Okay, so that's assuming, again, that's sort of default assuming right now when I want to change this. That's assuming that we've specified an input file, options.input, which is going to be the file name that we specify. I would like to modify this. Maybe we'll spend next live stream modifying this, understanding it a bit more, and modifying it to take standard input and also maybe produce standard output. I've started to take a look at how we'd read from standard input. Actually, it's quite simple. There's a package for it. I think it's called read from standard or something like that. And then the next thing we do here is we use the parse function that we've seen in the CSV library from SAP CDS. So we do the csv.parse source, and why don't let's put a breakpoint on there and run it to see what source is, so we can all sort of see what that is. In fact, if I run that F5 here, actually no, I'll need to set up a run configuration to run that. So in fact, instead, let me just finish that off just for now. Again, for time purposes, let me, what I'll do is I'll log source, in fact. There. Let's write that, and let's run it in the terminal because it's a little bit bigger. God, I hate this keyboard. There we go. So we're running verbose, and we'll log the source. So there's the source, okay? We can see supplier ID, blah, blah, blah. So that is what we get. Ronnie, thanks for joining. See you in the replay, and catch you on Twitter. Thanks awfully for joining. That's great. Have a good day. So that's what's in the source. Let's go back to Explorer and get rid of that. And then we work out, okay, what are the indices of the selected columns? So here in the run, I selected columns supplier ID and company name. So why don't we look at that one first of all in the last few minutes? We use the indices function to, we use the indices function to go and work out what the indices are from the full set of columns just for those fields that we selected. So let's say, for example, we selected supplier ID and company name, and the full set of columns is all those there. What are the indices for these two fields? So supplier ID is going to be index 0, and company name is actually going to be index 1. Quite boring, but you get the idea. So let's see how well it works. And I tweeted yesterday something along the lines of, function invocation, open brackets, close brackets, open brackets, close brackets is the new function invocation, open brackets, comma, close brackets. And what I meant by that is something here, for example. There's nothing wrong in calling a function that's waiting for 2 arguments to pass it the first argument, and then it produces another function and pass it the next argument. So that's what we're doing here. So calls and options.fields. Let's have a look at the definition of selected indices. Let's have a look at the definition of indices. Indices here is another one of these functions that is, I'm not sure how to describe this. I think I would describe it as, it's not curried as in, well, sorry, effectively it is has been written as though it was a curried function, but I think the act of currying is the act of taking a function that's not able to be partially applied and making it able to be partially applied. I think that's what currying means. Fred, help me out here if that's correct or not, or anybody else, of course. But this is a function that's written deliberately to be able to be partially applied. We're actually not partially applying this particular function, but we're going to be partially applying the pick later on. In fact, why don't we look at pick? We've got 5 minutes left. This is a little bit more interesting. So pick, let's read this here. Picks, you supply a source, an array. Okay, so in this case, for example, a source supplied would be an array that represents these values here. So the first element is going to be 1, the second element is going to be the string exotic liquids, the third is Charlotte Cooper, etc. Okay. So this is the source, which is the second parameter, and the target. In fact, you'll notice that I wrote the comment to the pick definition before I changed the order of the arguments around to make it much more amenable to partial application, which we'll see shortly. So you take some indices, so like 0 and 1. You take a source array of values, and it will just give you back those things. And it uses reduce to do that. So, and it also uses this little tick that we looked at last Friday with Chris Whaley, which effectively allows us to have the definition of that reduce function as a single expression. We'll go through this. Let me know in the comments if it would be useful to go through this in more detail and do it step by step, because I think personally this is really important. Exactly. Fred's put a reference to a really cool video, which is a recording of a presentation by Brian Lonsdorf. Just search for hey underscore you're doing it wrong. Exactly. The parameter order is super important. So the parameter order here is we take a list of indices, first of all. So this would be like, for example, open bracket 0, 1. And then we have a function. If we call it with just that single array of indices, 0 brackets 1, then we've got a function that's waiting for a source, which is an array of values. 0 and 1 exotic liquids, Charlotte Cooper and everything. How is that used? If we go down here, we can see in the context of creating the CSV header, which is a single line, we're just actually calling pick directly with the selected indices, and then directly with that single columns array, which effectively is these values here. Okay, so we call that once, and we don't partially apply. Well, I suppose we do partially apply in that we're doing that call and then call, but effectively that's in one gulp. Okay, thanks, Fred. Thanks for posting the link, Fred. Perfect. But the interesting version of using pick here is in a map. Okay, so we've got rows.map. So rows effectively is going to be an array of arrays. Okay, so the first element in the outermost array is the array that represents this line, and the second one that represents this line, and so on, right? And then we're mapping over those arrays, which have as elements arrays, and we're calling, or we're giving to the map function, a function. Of course, the map function is a higher order function that takes a function. This is actually a call to a function, but it's a call to a function that doesn't completely resolve because we're only partially applying it. We're only calling pick with the first parameter, supplying the indices as the first argument. So the result of that call is another function that's waiting for an array. So that complies with what map is expecting, which is a function that it can give a value to, in this case an array, and everything works beautifully. And the fact is, again, we haven't defined anything from a function definition perspective that's not pure, because this pick function doesn't reference anything outside of itself. You can see that indices is defined as a parameter here, and source is defined as a parameter here. So it's 8:59. SAP Inside Track is about to start. Let me know on Twitter or in these comments here, but Twitter is better because I turn OBS off when I finish. I'll rush out in a second. Let me know if this is something we want to continue with on the next live stream, which may be Wednesday. It might be Friday next week, but maybe Wednesday. And then we'll continue with looking what else we can use from the SAP CS library. So thanks for joining, everybody. I hope you have a great day. I'm going to pop next door into the back of SAP Inside Track because they're just starting. And I'll see you online shortly. Okay, have a great day. Bye. I'm going to close the OBS. I was going to do that sort of really coolly, but it didn't happen. There we go. Stop streaming. Bye.